and you've got proof of it, then it's pretty easy to see what happens. Now, the second statement that I think got Marty fired, Marty said in one of his questions, do you think this activity is over with in Omaha, or do you think they're still doing it?
Yeah.
And Jim took that question, and he said, well, I believe they're still doing it. I don't think they ever stopped. They might have just rearranged how they're doing it because of such exposure on the Gosch case.
Yeah.
But he said, I guarantee you they're still operative. Well, after those two statements, in addition to Marty being fired and me getting the doll, the man who told me the information about the police chief was dead 48 hours later.
Really?
It works very well. I get a lot of visitors to my site every month. And so I know that people are going on and reading the information. And I even have some of the radio programs, some of the ones I've been on with you, and some various ones that people can click into and go to archives and listen to them.
Where are we at right now with things? I mean, where are we at with the Jeff Gannon thing and other things right now? Are things kind of quiet?
Well, with the Jeff Gannon thing, he's still of the position that he's refusing to do the DNA. And since this lawsuit kind of overtook my life, I've just put that on hold for the time being.
Yeah.
Because this was a bigger issue and needed to be addressed right away. And that has been taking a lot of my energy, as well as the new information that has surfaced. We have had some people come forward recently, and I touched upon it before we went to break about the witness, the eyewitness.
Right.
He is now a grown man, and he said that at the time that he made the statement, the police chief had told him, do not tell anyone else that you actually saw Johnny shot and thrown into the car, because the statement the police were making was this: no one actually saw Johnny being thrown into a car. All we have is a boy that heard a car door slam and saw a car pull away.
Right.
That gave the police chief deniability, and he was able to then list Johnny as a runaway.
Yeah.
If this young boy would have been able to come out with the truth back then, it would have all been out. Johnny was a victim of foul play. He was shot right on the spot with a stun gun, thrown into a car, and they drove him away. But that information took almost 23 years to come out.
And they positively identified Paul Bonacci in the back seat. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
and then Paul Bonacci confessed to that as well.
And that's significant, because there is the link right there to the Omaha scandal.
And I think the only reason that this young man felt safe in coming forward with it now is because the police chief died about a year and a half ago.
And you said the person that told you this within 2 days was dead?
Yes, he was. And I could hardly believe it. We'd had Marty fired. I got the doll. And 48 hours later, I woke up one morning and my alarm clock, clock radio was on, and they were giving the morning news, and they announced that this man died, that he was found dead. And there was no more big news about it. There wasn't a story about it. And he was one of the elected officials at one time in West Des Moines.
Noreen, let me ask you this. This calls, of course, for speculation, but in your best guess, what are we dealing with here? I mean, what is really there, and why is it still as potent, if not more so, than it was before? What is really there? What's going on?
Well, I tell you, Mike, that has kept me up nights. I'm not kidding. You think you get it figured out, and then there's some new facet that develops.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, we thought we had it figured out that it was just a prostitution ring.
Yeah.
And then if we find out that it leads to so much more involving leverage over them by compromising them with kids, then we find out that there's an involvement that goes the direction of the church. In some ways, we found links there, and I think Phil could probably talk more on that subject than I could.
Yeah, he's talked quite extensively about it.
Because he's researched that part of it more than the other part, and I've been in the other part because Johnny was geared the other way.
You see the linkages there.
That's what we found.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it doesn't mean everybody in the church.
Well, no.
And it doesn't mean any particular church. It means churches as a whole. And it's not just one religion. but it just seems like it's everywhere, and it's like a huge cobweb.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also the possibility that this is, now, bear with me here for a moment. If you have a lot of young people that were put under a mind control project at one time,
right,
and we also know that they used this on soldiers,
mm-hmm.
we also know that they used it on prisoners.
Right.
What you've created then, thousands of people that are programmed. What are they waiting for?
Well,
what are they going to use them for?
That's interesting you bring that up because Dr. Corey Hammond, who is a psychologist in Salt Lake City, broached that subject in a symposium in a paper that he wrote, stating that all the people that he had interviewed that all had the multiple personality disorder and had claimed that they had been programmed in a facility akin to a lab. He postulated the same thing. We're talking about, literally there could be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people over the years that this has been done to. All of these people report that they know that they have a program to run, but they don't know what it is, and they know that they will be activated at some point to execute it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that brings up an interesting...
what is it they've created? Is it a sleeper army? And I'm not trying to be paranoid, but when you hear the reports and you know of all these individuals, as you said that this gentleman reported too, then the information is out there about these individuals that were programmed.
Yeah.
They all know that there's another program and that they can be triggered at any time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It sure is.
And I've talked to a number of them myself that, are all capable of this.
Yeah.
I've read Paul Bonassi's diaries and how they had codes for everything.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling, really.
Yeah. Okay, let me do this. I just before we went to the break, I got an email from Jeff Gannon. Okay, and he says to me, Mr. Corbin, Mrs. Gosch is mistaken. I have never refused to take a DNA test, and he signs it Jeff Gannon. I did respond to him, and I invited him to come on the air. I gave him the phone number in the email message. It's a toll-free number. And if he's listening, it's 877-424-4111, 877-424-4111. Jeff, if you're listening, give us a call. I mean, if what Noreen is saying is not accurate, we would love to hear from you. But in the other, with regards to this, if what she is saying is accurate, I think that just for peace of mind, if you're willing to take the DNA test privately, as your conditions were stated the first time around with Noreen, I think that would be only fair. And would you agree, Noreen?
Yes, I would. Mm-hmm.
You have anything you want to say to that?
Just that I know that when he did tell the KWWL TV crew that he would take a DNA test, I do know that his comments to others after that interview were, I never intended to take a DNA test. I just told the reporters that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know that those comments were made. Word gets around, and that's the same as a refusal to take it.
Yeah.
If you say you never intended to take it.
Well, I can understand.
I can too.
I can understand the idea that a rumor can surface and it can grow legs and the whole thing. And I can assure you, Jeff, if you're listening, this is not a witch hunt. And I, knowing you, Noreen, like I have for quite some time. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years now. And, again, this thing has taken on immense proportions. And, you've always, Noreen, played it down. Try to say, I will not confirm that Jeff Gannon is my son. And I think that, if there's a circumstance that arises privately, I think that's that would be a fair way to put this matter to rest. Would you agree?
I agree totally. And jumping over just a little bit to Paul Bishop. Paul Bishop had given us some information concerning James Guckert that it's still under investigation, that might prove or indicate that somewhere along the line adaptation of personalities took place.
Well, okay, what is